good.
Okay. All right, let's call to order at 8:02. Welcome, everybody. Nice to see you all. Before we get started, Metro Vancouver Transit Police and the Police Board respects the Indigenous nations within Metro Vancouver and acknowledges all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people for their continued resilience, sustainable stewardship, and as active members of the community for generations to come. We recognize that working within and managing the region's transportation system, we have a role to play with Indigenous peoples. All right. First order of business, consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull anything from consent?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Anything else? Anything else? All right. Can I get a motion to accept the...
So moved.
Great. Great. All right, George, aye.
Just wanted to pull that one out to say congratulations to you, Marnie, to be reappointed, and also to Sean, but also just to take a moment, knowing the time commitment you as chair make, and publicly, I think it's really important because you attend all the committee meetings, the work that you do, obviously with senior leadership, and then also have to deal with TransLink and stuff. It's a big time commitment. It's really appreciated. I don't think everybody knows how much time and effort goes into it. So you've got your day job as well. So congratulations on being in it for another 2 years.
Nice of you. Yep. Have me for 2 years. There you go. All right. Public delegations, anything? Nothing? All right. We're into Chief Report.
Yeah, good morning, everyone, and I'll turn it over to Deputy Ferlin for the Operations Division update. Good morning, everyone. So you do have a fairly full report. I'm just going to go over some of our key highlights on the operational side. So really, our operational overview, we've been focusing on system safety and resiliency. So our squads continue to focus on integration and education with our members of the other operating companies. We are also planning tabletop exercises in 2024 that will engage all of the operating companies and be a great learning tool as we move into FIFA 2026. We also are focusing on engagement and relationship building. So our squads and specialized units continue to engage both with our operating companies and our jurisdictional policing partners for coordinated patrols and projects. And we've had many success stories with a number of our partners, both municipal and RCMP, that have been in the media and are within your package. High visibility patrols and community engagement. So we continue to focus on that, obviously, since the spring and the spate of violence that we did see on the system. Our squads continue to really focus on high visibility patrols, and these are conducted in areas where intelligence and analytics have shown there's a need for us to be in those specific areas at specific times, and those seem to be having a really good impact. Obviously, one of our greatest success is the deployment of 10 community safety officers. They have increased our ability to enhance our visibility on the system and engage more with our commuters, and we're seeing them have a substantial impact in doing some really great work at the systems and bus stops with our members and also with the traveling public. Our tactical mobile enforcement team continues to focus their efforts in and around transit hubs and bus stops. And in early December, these members will be participating in an initiative with participants from all law enforcement agencies in the Light Up Your Night campaign, bringing awareness to public on the issues of impaired driving during the holiday season, and obviously our focus on wanting people to utilize transit for their holiday season travels. Our General Investigations Unit and Crime Suppression teams have been very busy with enforcement, targeting problem offenders in and around the specific transit hubs. They have coordinated their efforts with our jurisdictional police partners for a number of successful projects. And these coordinated efforts allow our members to highlight their skill set and also build relationships with the members of our jurisdictional police agencies and the communities that we serve. Recently, we have ensured a close relationship and intelligence sharing with our jurisdictional police partners in relation to the many protests which have been occurring most in the downtown area of Vancouver, which I'm sure Chief Palmer could certainly attest to. We have not seen any adverse impacts to the transit system at this point in time, but we continue to closely monitor, and we will adapt our deployment model based on intelligence and the weekly coordination meetings that we attend to. Just for interest, for naloxone deployments, this reporting period we had 8, and mental health apprehensions we had 16 for this quarter. So the community safety officers, as I stated above, our first class of 10 CSOs are now deployed into the field and are providing exceptional visibility in and around our transit system. The second class of 10 community safety officers commenced training on November 6th and will participate in the same 3-block training model as our initial class, with graduation slated for April 2024. And we welcome 3 new recruits from class 170 when they graduated on November 10th. Our community policing center in the waterfront area, our volunteer lead has now been hired and started in early November. And this is a great accomplishment for us because we're going to release one of our neighborhood police officers who's been doing a lot of that administrative tasking to be able to get back into the community in the area they serve. So we're thrilled to be able to have that volunteer lead on board. Our neighborhood police officers, as always, are very busy in engagement with the community. So this quarter, they were engaged in 19 presentations for system and commuter safety. They attended the UBC Safety Fair with the UBC RCMP. And over to our Indigenous liaison officer, we all know that Constable Rattray is incredibly busy within the Indigenous community in a number of events. So our Blue Eagle Community Cadet Program, which continues to be very successful in Vancouver and Surrey. They've had 13 regular weekly sessions. He's attended the BPD School Liaison Officer and Indigenous Liaison Officer meetings. A powwow for 3 days with the Blue Eagle table to attract new Blue Eagle cadets to the program. Indigenous Arts Ceremony at King George Station, Truth and Reconciliation Day Walk, and the Indigenous Veterans Remembrance Day are just some of the highlights of the things that he has attended with members of our organization. Our Operational Communications Center, we now have our own internal training program. And so this started with 4 casual trainees, and they were hired. We are doing our own internal training program that will move them through the different modules with the full training completed at OCC Dispatchers in April 2024. And lastly, with FIFA 2026 coming, we continue our engagement and discussions with the City of Vancouver and the Vancouver Police Department. We hope to have a better understanding of the resourcing needs from the transit standpoint in 2024. And this is going to be an exciting time for transit as we work with all our operating companies as well as the Vancouver Police Department to ensure we are well prepared for this world-class event. And that's my operational update. Thank you. And we'll turn it over to Deputy Graham for the administrative updates.
Good morning. I know everything kind of went out in the written report, so I'm just going to quickly try and touch on a few highlights. So kind of to coincide with the start of our new waterfront volunteer, we finished the renovation in that space. So we now actually have a separate dedicated space for the volunteers for the coordinator, as well as we implemented some safety glass just so that they have a space should anybody kind of come into the office. We've also begun our feasibility study on a potential new office to go with the Langley Surrey extension. So that started and is currently under its way. On our fleet side, we recently did an ad hoc with TransLink for our 2024 orders. So what we did is, what we expect to order everything in 2024, we pulled that into our 2023 order so that we can order it now. Essentially what we're trying to do is to deal with supply chain issues and overusage. So just as an example, for our 2022 vehicle order, I've only received 7 of 11 vehicles. We typically receive all those vehicles in 2022. So I've yet to receive a 2023 vehicle. I don't even have all of our 2022 vehicles. So again, we're still dealing with worldwide supply chain issues, and it's causing us to kind of extend the life of our vehicles beyond what we're looking to, and we're starting to see large kind of repair bills. So to try and get ahead of that curve and deal with it, we were able to kind of call our 2024 order early into 2023. So that should hopefully start to alleviate some things, although it will typically probably be a year away. Currently in the process of recruiting and hiring a new inspector, so we do expect that to hopefully wrap up near the end of the month. And just a couple IT highlights. Right now, we're gathering our requirements to upgrade our CCTV server. That's also in the works. We have upgraded all the hardware within our interview room, so that's our cameras, our recording, and our software. And we're also finally replacing all our new switches, which are currently at end of life, and that's 20 switches for us, so it ends up being a fairly significant project on our IT side. And finally, with finance, we did kind of switch to a new program this year, and currently we're in our interim audit with our external auditors, so that process is also going on, and also we are doing some segregation, some duties to an internal audit to our new financial system. And that's everything that I have, thanks.
How many people applied for inspector?
We had 4 applicants for this position.
May I have a comment with regards to FIFA 25 and 26, I believe? We have a goal commander in the mainland, it's Lieutenant Chip Elliott. So part of FIFA will involve our safety detachment. So I'm sure you guys already latched up, but if you're not, I can certainly help on that.
Thank you very much.
Any questions? Case report from the board?
Just one quick question, just with regards to the mental health apprehensions and I think the deployment of Oxalon. You used the number, is that up, is that down?
It's slightly up, but what is down is the number that is being certified. It's around, for us at Transit Police, around 70% now. Previously, we were around the 80% mark in terms of actually certification once they're taken to the hospital.
So just wondering if you're going to report on this on a regular basis, is it possible maybe just to demonstrate if there's a trend or like what it's been over the last several periods so we can kind of figure out where we're at?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, and overall, from Q1 to Q3 for this year, mental health apprehensions are down 31%. And we'll have a breakdown for you for the next board meeting.
And is there a reason that you think that it's down a third almost?
Yeah, I mean, we've made kind of inferences that, and our hope is that the supports that we are, providing to the clients through our mental health liaison officer and the referrals that are occurring out of that are having a positive impact. And we are seeing increasing referral numbers, so there is likely a correlation there.
Yes, thanks for your report. I was wondering about, you mentioned Constable Rattray, and I thought he retired, so I was wondering about replacements or how, in terms of that, the important work that he does.
Yeah, so no, fortunately, he has not retired.
Okay.
So we are very grateful, for...
What?
Breaking news.
Yeah,
the work and the relationships that Constable Rattray has in community are just exceptional.
Okay.
Certainly that succession plan and what that looks like,
That's what I'm interested in.
we would like to not see that happen, but certainly there's been other individuals through the Blue Eagle program. We've had shadowing, in those specific roles.
Okay.
And looking for those kind of next steps in terms of...
So he is working with some folks that, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. That's great.
Any other questions? That's great. I appreciate the written report. Very detailed. It was great to see. Thank you. All right. Be the shortest open meeting ever. All right. On to other business. Finance Committee.
Right, thank you. So, there are a couple of things that were significant on the most recent Finance Committee meeting. One was the Q3 results we received. And the bottom line is that there's a favorable variance year to date to the end of Q3 of about $226,000, but it primarily relates to the timing of hiring of the CSOs. And so it is instead of I guess what I call a fundamental saving, it's a saving on timing. The offsetting circumstances of the VPD have recently settled a collective agreement, Madeline, correct me if I'm wrong, but the agreement settled at higher than 3% per annum, which was the amount that we allowed in our 2023 budget for wage adjustments for the sworn members. And given the VPD settlement, it's likely that the salaries that we'll be paying in back pay to the sworn members will be higher than the 3%. And that will likely have an offsetting will offset the $225,000 surplus that has been projected year to date for our budget. So at year end, we're hoping that we will be in a position to at least zero out in comparison to what we had been provided with for resources at the start of the year. The second thing that we dealt with, which was pretty significant and is important for us to consider carefully, is there was a report done on the Operations Communication Center, and I was talking with Chief Muir this morning about it, but there's a number of recommendations in that report that will help provide data to the police service as well as to the board about directions that should be taken with respect to the communication center. And there are a number of issues. So the next item of work that study was recommending is a time and motion study related to the work of the call takers and the information personnel as well as the dispatchers to determine exactly how much time it takes for each different task to be undertaken. And that will give us a better basis upon which then to assess whether additional staff is needed or are needed. In the meantime, I would like to have that report referred back to the Finance Committee for further review with the chief and the deputies regarding some of the recommendations that aren't particularly clear about what the ramifications are financially. And so the next Finance Committee meeting, I think, is in February. But the time and motion study, I understand through Chief Muir, is going to take probably about 6 months to complete. Is that?
Yeah, the hope and intention is to have it completed by the end of Q2.
Right, okay.
2024.
So that would be the end of June of 24. So it seems like we've got some time to consider carefully what the report's recommending. And one of the things that I think needs to be reviewed again, I know it's been reviewed fairly recently, but reviewed again to confirm that our best approach is to retain the OCC internally as opposed to contract out with ECOM that call-seeking function. But at this point in time, given the problems that are evident at ECOM, and the fact that even though our Operations Communication Center is operating, I don't know whether suboptimally is the word, but could be improved. The service levels that we are getting through our own OCC are acceptable, and we're not sure that what we would get if we were to contract with an ECOM would be acceptable. An additional complicating factor is that we are doing work for West Vancouver PD in the non-emergency call area right now as well. So it's something that I think needs further review, and that further information will come back through the Finance Committee and through the senior management team regarding what the time and motion study reveals and what sort of improvements are necessary in order to bring us up to what they call current standard for OCC operations. I'm just going to see if I can find the minutes were in the consent agenda for both the regular meeting and the in-camera meeting. I think that covers the significant items.
Okay.
There was a risk update provided by Pat Cole in relation to how we're tracking risks as an organization, and the Finance Committee has a couple of risks that are assigned, 3 risks that are assigned to the Finance Committee. And the updated approach to addressing risk appears to be moving in a good direction. So we will continue to monitor that as the other committees will as well, and determine whether the current augmentations are sufficient or whether additional changes are necessary in order to properly demonstrate management of risk. And we've heard the recruiting update, I think, through Deputy Chief Graham. I don't think there's anything else unless there are questions that anybody has as a result of reviewing the minutes that were part of the consent agenda.
Any questions for Murray? Okay, so the OCC you'll put on your next finance committee,
Yes.
that report?
Yeah.
For
I did want to
February?
mention, this may not be at the appropriate time, but I'm the Transit Police Service board member who's appointed to the BCAPP as the rep.
Mhm.
And the BCAPP is going through a process of developing a strategic plan for that association. The association is operating sort of on a thread right now, quite frankly, from a resource perspective. And even, staffing, there's one part-time administration person that is paid by the BCAPB. The intention of the strat plan is to develop recommendations around how to make the association more credible, I guess, and develop a financial plan that allows us to do more work on behalf of the group of police service, independent police services that are members of our executive committee. So what will happen next is there's a survey that Watson and Associates has been retained to undertake or to facilitate that development of that strategic planning process. They have prepared a questionnaire that they would like to have circulated to all board members of all the independent services. And so between now and our strategic planning session in December, through you, Chair Larson, I'd like to circulate that questionnaire. And there's two elements to it. One is sort of a multiple choice element for questions about the kinds of things that BCAPB should be or could be providing as a service to the police board. And the second element is an open-ended comments section about views or opinions or suggestions that may be appropriate for the BCAPB to consider in the context of developing this strat plan. And it is important that everybody become engaged in that has an interest. And I know in my conversations with Gigi earlier I guess it was late last week, there was a question whether people beyond boards could become engaged in that process as well, because in transit, the transit police services context, we have an interesting model because really PSML is the employer of record in relation to employing the personnel of the transit police service, and therefore have a defined, definite interest in sort of outcomes of the BCAPB. So I think in the context of the BCAPB, I'm going to be recommending that we broaden the scope of the circulation of the questionnaire to those that have, the stakeholders that have an interest.
Okay.
And I don't think there'll be any problem with that, but I'll keep everyone posted.
Okay.
So at this point in time, that's my report.
Okay, great. Any questions for Murray? All good? Okay. All right, over to George.
Just from the governance committee, the minutes are there. You've had a chance to take a look at them. Probably the only thing I would say is that hopefully in 2024, we as a board can be more visible in the community due to COVID and so on. I think it's been one of those situations where we live stream, but it'd be nice, and we've talked about this even in our strategic meeting, to set up public areas that we could go to once or twice during the course of a year.
Yeah.
And we'll work towards that with the consent of everybody, but it's, I think, important that anybody that wishes to, they don't necessarily have to come to a building like this. They may not feel comfortable entering a building like this. Maybe we can find something in a community setting that would encourage greater participation by Indigenous representatives as well, and do a presentation. We talked about doing something with the CSOs at some point down the line once they've been in their roles and had a chance to be able to maybe report back. We've talked a little bit about that, so that's one other thing. And then finally, with absolutely no authority whatsoever, I've actually talked to CAPG about having transit police at the conference next year in Halifax. I haven't heard back. I just wrote them a quick note just thinking that we've got a great story to tell. Best story in Canada, the only story in Canada related to transit police. And if we don't tell the story, I don't think anybody else is. So in terms of the leadership that we have, in terms of what we do, the issues facing major urban areas around transit. I think there's a great story, and hopefully we can have that with other organizations. So if I hear back, I'll let you know, and if not, I'll pursue it anyway, even without authority. I'll pretend I'm chief.
Okay, oh, that's great. Yep, that's great, I agree, we're looking into some board meetings out in the community next year, so probably in the spring, try that, so we're doing some research on that right now. Any questions for George? Yeah, sure.
More a comment that I'm involved right now in taking the Foundations 101 training.
Right.
It's being sponsored by the province, but intended for all board members of all the independent police services to attend. And the thing that, in the context of community engagement, the thing that has struck me is that there's kind of two elements to the community engagement piece. One is a legal element. It talks about requirements for police services to be engaged with the community in a meaningful way. I'm not using the exact words, but that's the context. And then the second element is boards have oversight of the community engagement strategy that's adopted by the police services, the police service that we oversee. And so having meetings in the community, board meetings in the community, and encouraging delegations and things like that, I think appears to be aligned with what legislation expects. And then the question that area between the mandate that's given in the Act around what police services are responsible to do and what boards are responsible to oversee is kind of the gray area where we have to be careful that the shoe stays on the right foot. And I raise it not because I really understand specifically where and how engagement should be undertaken, but I do know that it's a collaborative effort between the police service and the board. And probably the larger responsibility rests with the senior management team as opposed to the board. But the board has to ensure that it's actually happening. And the board can be engaged, but shouldn't be necessarily the ones leading the charge.
Right. Great. Any other comments, questions for governance? No? All right. So that is the end of the agenda for the open. Mark that down as a record, Karen. It's 8:30. Yeah. Next meeting is February 9th. Great. Adjourned.